Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Hey, let's get back to Iraq because it's been a little while since I did a video on Iraq. There is an article that came out a few days ago, or I should say a couple days ago, which dang near lays out the blueprint for what it is Iraq has to do in order to consider increasing their exchange rate. It's not anything they haven't spoke about before, but we'll go ahead and go over it anyways and show you what it is that Iraq has to do in order to get their ducks in a row. Boy, first of all, you gotta love this picture. Look at all the different colors of different types of currency, which includes the Iraqi Dinar, the Vietnam Dong, as well as Indonesia's money. Before we get started, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, go to our friends over at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get an additional half ounce of silver with your order. In addition to that, it's a small way to help out the channel. Also, I want to remind everybody there is alternate platforms that I'm on. We have Pimpy's News Network, which is usually a place where we put videos that I cannot play on YouTube because its content is sensitive to YouTube. Also, come join us on Facebook. We do have a group called Pimpy's Investment Chat. I encourage you to come join us because over here we do talk about gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, as well as foreign currencies and other investments as well. You can also find me over here on Twitter, as well as MeWe and YouTube. The link for all these social media platforms will be down below in the description. If for whatever reason I get knocked off of YouTube, you can find me over there at those other locations. So here we go. This is the article I was talking about. It actually wasn't from a couple of days ago. It was out yesterday. It says the World Bank. The government has an opportunity for necessary economic reforms. A new report of the Iraq Economic Observatory of the World Bank stated that the Iraqi economy is currently witnessing a recovery due to the increase in production accompanied by the rise in oil prices, indicating that at the same time that while Iraq is considered amongst the countries in the world's most dependent on oil in its economy, it is without radical structure reforms and diversification of the sources of the economy. This leaves them vulnerable to the consequences of fluctuating crude prices in the global market. We know this. 95% of the money provided for the budget comes from oil sales. What was it in 2019 or 2020? They dang near went bankrupt because the price of oil dropped really low and it affected their money. We know that it was in 2019 and 2020 when we started to deal with the RONA that, countries were shut down. There wasn't a huge demand for oil at the time. And because of this affected the oil prices and in turn affected Iraq and their economy and the money to run the government. If it wasn't for Al-Qademi coming in and devaluing the currency, most likely the government in Iraq would have collapsed. So we've been talking about this now for years. They have to get away so much from depending on oil revenue. So the report stated that after economic growth rate in Iraq expanded during the year 2021 by 2.8%, the annual GDP growth of the country increased during the first half of 2022 to 10.5%. That's a huge jump. Higher oil revenues resulting from the increase in export quantities and prices have strengthened the country's financial position in a big way. Oh, I would say so. Their foreign reserves are up to almost 90 billion. Their gold reserves have almost doubled in about a year, and they're dealing with a pretty huge surplus. Despite several reform initiatives in the country, Iraq is still one of the most dependent countries on oil in the world. High dependence on oil coupled with mismanagement leaves Iraq vulnerable to fluctuating oil prices. And although oil is the source of most of the government's resources, the oil sector occupies only 1% of the labor force in Iraq. It provides the most money and is the cheapest to do, apparently. And why that's a problem is, people need jobs. And it's a good thing they're making a lot of money off of oil. But unfortunately, it's not contributing very much to employment there in the country. The public sector is the largest official place of employment, accounting for 37.9% of the country's workforce. As for the private sector, it is still a poor formal sector that is stunted from growth. The report confirms that the legacy of conflicts, political instability, and poor management of state institutions has increased the decline in investment in the sector and hampered its growth. That's because they're not a stable country. The report indicated that the new government's assumption of its duties in October 2022 represents a new opportunity to implement reforms in order to diversify the sources of the economy, taking advantage of the good financial situation that it now enjoys to achieve a sustainable growth path that is able to withstand the shocks of fluctuating oil prices and the growth challenges of climate change crisis in the country. Preserving parts of the oil revenue to face any decline in the economic activities is crucial to achieving sustainable growth. To achieve sustainable growth and laxity in economic reform process during the period would deepen the structural economic challenges. The report states that the absence of the approval of the 2022 budget has hindered taking advantage of the rise in oil prices to implement new investment projects. In addition, with a weak business environment, inefficiency in public sector investment, mismanagement, corruption, and the lack of adequate infrastructure, all these factors constitute major obstacles to attracting foreign investment, despite some progress in the recent years. And this is the big reason why you've not seen any real increase in the Iraqi Dinar exchange rate. Those right there laid out for you are huge steps that need to be taken before they can increase their purchasing power, before they can increase the value of the Iraqi dinar. Said the white reform papers prepared by the previous government had included measures to improve the public investment network and redefine the public investment management system based on the best international experiences in this field. But so far, these plans have not been fully implemented. That's what they were talking about. Al-Qademi and Saleh were saying that although they had the plans, it doesn't do no good if they're the only ones implementing the plans, that it would be stretched out over years and obviously include multiple governments. With regards to the consequences of climate change, the report indicated that Iraq is exposed to direct and indirect effects of this issue, as the increase in the water scarcity and the decrease in agriculture crops are problems that affect the rate of economic growth and increase the risk of food security, and that this has an additional impact on the social economic challenges for the people of the country. My thing is, I remember at one time Saudi Arabia was trying to work out a water deal with Iraq, and this was a couple years ago. And there was talk of a possible man-made, like a type of pole or a way they could store the water. You know, make it out of concrete and then have the water run from the closest river out of Iraq and going into Saudi Arabia through pipes, and that it would just fill up and they would have a way to protect the water that's in there. So they would just catch the runoff from the water. I don't understand if these countries are having issues with water. When it does rain, they should find a way to capture the rain. Why don't they just build one of the world's biggest storage for water? They're out there in the middle of the desert. Just make it concrete, cover it up, make sure it's purified, and when you need the water, you can use it. They have the money to do it, why not? The report calls for adoption of effective measures to cope with climate change, focusing on better ways of using water allocated to agriculture for the purpose of its sustainability, which contributes to the continuing of the economic income for farmers and the provisions of job opportunities while maintaining food security at the same time. To achieve this, there are three main points. It is improving the infrastructure, enhancing innovation, and developing administrative work. Not to mention above them, Jordan has been building dams to stop the water from coming down. They feel like it's their right. So this ought to be interesting to see what happens if countries don't start fighting over water. Blocking the water that comes into the Tigris River or any of the other main rivers that flow through Iraq obviously is going to affect them in a major way. These challenges are getting more severe as the country remains completely dependent in its economy on oil only, which leaves the country vulnerable to new economic risk amid the world's trends towards non-carbon alternative energy, whereby oil loses its role at this stage as a source of imports with the decline in demand for it. I don't see that happening, but just in case, this is what I'm talking about. When I'm having discussions with people, I'm saying there's no way Iraq can increase their exchange rate with any real major increase in value, because it wouldn't take very much to knock them back down again. You just heard this. They rely too much on oil sales. And if all of a sudden everybody's going to the Green New Deal and we're getting away from oil, that's obviously going to affect Iraq if nobody is buying their oil. This is another biggie, an agreement between Baghdad and Washington, an American grant to support development in Iraq. I'm all about supporting countries as long as somehow, some way, in addition, the American people will also benefit from this. The problem is we're giving out money to everybody in the world, except for we have our own problems here in our own country. Why is it that our government is able to send money whenever they feel like it to countries without asking first permission from its people? We should have the say-so since it's our money that they're sending over there. We paid the taxes. Look at this. On Wednesday, Iraqi United States of America signed a development goals grant agreement under which Baghdad will receive $550 million over 5 years. $550 million. Did American people vote on this? No. Do we get a say-so? Obviously not. That's the problem that I have with the way government has become here in the United States. They just seem to be doing whatever the hell they feel like, whenever they feel like, with no repercussions and no accountability. Here's the thing that disgusts me about us sending money all the time to these places to supposedly help them, like we're supposed to be doing over there in Ukraine. There's no audit. Where's the money? Where did it go? We need some type of accountability. Is the money going to where it's supposed to be going? Or is it being used as a way to funnel money to other projects that Americans wouldn't agree with? That's what we need to find out. Following the signing of the agreement, the United States Ambassador Elena Romanowski said in a press conference in Baghdad, this agreement is an unprecedented milestone for bilateral relations between the two countries, and that our partnership enhances our common goals of a more stable and prosperous Iraq that serves all of its people. Yeah, I'm all for that, but keep in mind, we keep sending these people money time and time again, but they seem to be heading down that path of joining China's Silk Road Initiative, which totally screws over the United States. So we're giving them money to help them, but they're about to cut us out altogether. So anyways, the money is supposed to go to the Ministry of Planning, in which is supposed to help them develop plans and determine priorities, guaranteed and long-term impact for our activities in our development assistance in the country. It's supposed to go out there and help the vulnerable people, the marginalized people. You can see right here, it says, the years of conflict have affected Iraq's ability to provide services and economic opportunities to all its citizens. And our common goal is to support the economic growth in Iraq. Why don't you first try supporting the economic growth in the United States? Strengthen democratic institutions, address climate change, and help the most vulnerable groups amongst the population. And that this agreement is the beginning of the cooperative relations between the United States Agency for the International Development and the Iraq Ministry of Planning. This is what we look forward to. So there you have it. I mean, the World Bank basically laid out what it is Iraq needs to do to get their ducks in a row. And if they could do that, then by all means, they will see an increase in the value of the Iraqi dinar, especially since the dollar will be crashing. But the fact that they're sending over so much money to all these countries without asking the American people whether or not it's okay drives me insane. Taxation without representation, is that how it goes? Anyways, you guys let me know what you think down below in the comment, and I will get back at you later. I'm out.